This is Gary Kasparov. He's the number one chess player in the world around 1996. He was and is probably considered the greatest chess player in history. Take Roger Federer and then multiply the number of weeks. He was number one by three, and that's what you have Gary Kasparov. 15 years, number one chess player in the world. February of 1996, he's sitting across the table from a computer, IBM's Deep Blue. And this was it's got a lot of publicity. This was a big deal. Chess programs were nothing new. I had one on my Mac in the 80s. They weren't very good in the 80s. I could thump mine. I was a pretty mediocre chess player. I thought I was really good because I would beat up on this unsuspecting chess program, but they got better fast. So Kasparov was pretty up to speed on like the chess program. So he knew what he was facing. He knew this was like a big deal. So they were going to play 6 games, first one to 6 win. Kasparov went out in this first game and he's like, I got to play this flamboyant style they've never seen, and it backfired. IBM's Deep Blue stayed right with him and actually won that game. A chess program had never beaten the number one player in the world, so this was a big deal. That night, remember they're playing they're playing 6 games. So that night, uh, Kasparov goes back to his room and he's just fuming. But this ain't his first rodeo. So he devises a new strategy. He's like, well, I'm gonna go to this really slow positional chess where the advantages that I'm getting aren't gonna really show up for like 5, 10, 15 moves in the future. He thumps IBM for the rest of that series. He wins 4-2, and it wasn't even that close. So the programmers at IBM go back and they're pretty down and defeated because it costs millions of dollars. Deep Blue was like in this warehouse with coolers and every server that IBM had. It was a big deal. So they go back defeated. So then they have a rematch in 1997, and Kasparov is getting paid a lot of money to do this. That's why he would agree to a rematch with a computer. So they start having this rematch. Kasparov wins the first game with using the same strategy he did before, and it looks like it's gonna go pretty much the same way until in the second game, the 37th move, there was a move that IBM's Deep Blue did that, like, changed the chess world. It moved its knight to this unprotected square, which was very uncomputer-like. And Kasparov saw this, and he he had a very visceral reaction. This is his reaction. He's like, "What the hell's going on?" And he thought one of 3 things was true at this time. Number 1, IBM was cheating. They had some grandmaster that was feeding it moves because this move was a human move. It was something that was like getting a piece sacrifice for this larger positional advantage. So he's like, "They're cheating," but then that doesn't really make sense because what grandmaster is gonna beat Gary Kasparov anyway? But then that was one of his ideas. He said this later. This is what he thought when he saw this move. They were cheating. Number 2, it was just a mistake. Or number 3, the thing that he really feared was this program was thinking, and it was thinking like a chess master, and it was thinking way ahead of him. And it would be the latter that was true. So Kasparov indeed lost that game to Deep Blue, went on to lose the series. And it was a big deal, made splashes all over the news, all over the news. Kasparov said, he was devastated. He said, "I felt like I was defending not just my title, but humanity. If I win, I prove that human creativity still reigns. And if I lose, I become the man who played the first real match against our successors." So this is AI in 1996 that's thinking like a human. So what happened between 1996 and 1997? Did the programmers get better? Did they come up with some new algorithm? Did they bring on these grandmasters? None of that happened. They used pretty much the same programming. They put in some more openings. But what happened is what's happened every single year since technology's been introduced at the beginning of time, which is processing power increased. And so IBM's Deep Blue, rather than processing 100 million moves a minute in 96, it could process 200 million moves a minute in 97. And that increase was enough to feel like thinking. And it felt like thinking by the greatest chess player of all time. So I'm going to share 4 truths about AI over the next decade that's relevant to all of us. And the first one, as evidenced by this story, is that with big enough data sets and enough processing power, AI starts to look like human intelligence. With large enough data sets and enough processing power, it will begin to resemble human intelligence. And again, this is almost 30 years ago that that was true. To give you an idea, we are 8,000, over 8,000 times more processing power than we had in 1996. So just to give you a little bit of a kind of history of AI and then the processing power that's been able to power AI. So in 97, when Kasparov lost, on the y-axis here are the number of transistors per microprocessor. Think of that as just a shorthand way to say processing power. So I could just call it TPM. So there were 10 million TPM back in 1997, and that's what that scale shows. And you'll see every one of these graphs is logarithmic, which is kind of scary, and it will continue that way. So that's 97. So a decade later, we've now gone up to 300. Remember, we started at 10 million. We're at 300 million TPM, and we now have recommendation engines, and we have things like sentence completion. That's machine learning, where machines are actually learning from the data sets. They don't have to get learned by someone who's programming them. Fast forward another decade, now we're going 8x processing power from just the last decade, and now you have voice recognition, facial recognition, and really kind of complex sentence completion. And then this was really a huge breakthrough in 2017. The Google published a paper called "Attention is All You Need," and it introduced this concept of a transformer. And without getting into too much detail, this was an algorithm where every word in a sentence is granted a numerical weighting to every other word in the sentence. So how relevant is it to this word and this word and this word? And that allowed, and then every sentence gets weighted to other words in the paragraph, to this multi pages, to an entire book. And this is what feels like learning. Now, this is only possible because we're at 19 billion transistors per microprocessor at this time. This is the algorithm, the transistors, or sorry, the transformers that powers all of the LLMs. LLM stands for large language model. So ChatGPT is running that transformer algorithm, and now we're at 80 billion transistors per microprocessor. Remember, we started at 10 million 30 years ago, so we're 8,000 times the processing power. Now, here's the scary chart, or scary or exciting, depending on your perspective. This is where we're going. This is what is projected over the next 5 years. So, to give you an idea, I'm going to say this one more, just to give you the numbers one more time. We're at 80 billion transistors per microprocessor today, 80 billion. 5 years, we'll be at 400. So, the delta, the increase in processing power we're going to have over the next 5 years is 4 times greater than the increase we've had lifetime to date. Okay. The increase that's coming in processing power over the next 5 years is 4 times greater than the entire history of compute power increases that we've had so far. So it's massive what's happening. So brings us to kind of truth two. So truth one, large enough data sets with enough processing power will start to resemble human intelligence, and we will continue to see exponential increases in processing power. So whatever's clunky or not working that well right now, or you're like, yeah, I don't know if AI can do that, just wait. And you don't have to wait that long. So, just to give you a little bit of landscape, or a little bit of summary of the landscape of the large language models in AI. So and for some of you, this will be a little bit review. For some of this might be more interesting. So when people talk about AI and they're talking about, oh, you're going to use AI, they're almost always, probably 80-90% of the time, they're talking about the large language models. So this is ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok. So this is what they're talking about. Okay, this is where AIs happen. This is where the processings happen. This is the engine of artificial intelligence. Underneath that is the infrastructure that's making this, that's powering this. So NVIDIA, this is all the data centers. This is all the compute power, energy. This is massive. There's a ton of investment that goes into the infrastructure to make this happen. The reason I bring this up is um, this is where all the investment dollars are going right now. To give you an idea of the magnitude, there's projected to be over $7 trillion that's going into the infrastructure and compute power in AI over the next 5 years. And to put that in perspective, that's about 7 times the total national spending on defense, and many, many multiples of any spend that's been in the last, 5 years. So it's just a gargantuan amount of expenditure that's going in to the infrastructure for AI. Sitting on top of the LLMs are apps. And just like apps sit on your iPhone, apps sit on top of these LLMs. But here's what's totally different about this landscape than any other technology revolution that we've ever seen is that all of the basic processing power and compute power is in the LLMs. So these apps, even the big ones that you've heard of, some of these ones on the top, like you probably heard of maybe Replit, Cursor, Harvey. These are big, big companies. They are not actually doing AI calculations themselves. They are taking information and putting it into ChatGPT or whatever the LLM is and taking it out. So the processing, the AI, the magic that's happening is all in the LLMs. And this is important because it really means that it's a lot more democratized technology. And I'll explain that right here. So this is the kind of flow of what's happening in AI. And we'll use a simple example. We'll say that you're going to use AI to say run your call center or help you run your call center. Let's say you hire a company and they're the app provider that's gonna help you run your call center. So you're gonna provide that company a bunch of data. What they're gonna do is prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is a fancy way of saying like coding for an LLM. So it's basically how do you talk to an LLM? So they're going to do some kind of prompt engineering with that data. They're going to then put that into ChatGPT or a one of the large language models. They're going to get an output. They might go back and forth a little bit, and we'll do some of this afternoon in our workshop. And then they're going to give you, an output, which is your use case, which is like you're going to make your call center better. You're going to book an appointment or whatever your final use case is. So this is kind of how it's working. But this is why I show this chart, because if you divide this up into 3 boxes, you're on the left, okay? You being all of us here that are running a business. You're on the left. You're the one who has the data and you have the use case of what's happening with that data. So you're the one who has the millions and millions of calls that have happened or hundreds of thousands or whatever, and you're the one who also gets the benefit of the output of AI. In the middle, you have the large language models, which are the ones that are doing all the work and all the calculations. And on the right, you might have an app, which is really just doing prompt engineering and output. So the point is, you and all of us have the exact same access to AI for $20 a month that the largest app that you could imagine has. They're using the same thing you're using. So it's an incredibly open, democratized, available technology, totally different than any technology we've seen before. If you're comparing this to software, the code is closed. One company's got its own code and it's protected. They're not going to, they have a moat around it. If you go back to the internet, you might have had, people have tons of technology wrapped around, their products that they're doing. That's not the case here. There's a very thin layer of intellectual property that these apps have, which is really distinguishing, and I think informs us a lot on our strategy, which we'll talk about. So in the old days, where was the intellectual property is a question. In the old days, it was code. Now it's your data plus some prompt engineering. I think over short time, prompt engineering is going to become a commodity as well. And it's going to really just be your data plus your system of learning from that data. That's going to be the intellectual property. So you really have the advantage. Like this is like, I'd rather be us. And if you go and look at like what venture firms are doing, so Sequoia, Khosla, um, Benchmark, Thrive Capital have all announced that they are doing services roll-ups, which is what we do, because that's where they think the magic is going to happen. They think that they want to be the beneficiaries of AI. They've realized that this thin layer of app. First of all, there's only 3 or 4 or 5 LLMs that take billions of dollars. That's an okay business. It's not even clear if they're going to make money. Whatever. Put that aside. Then they're looking at these apps and they're like, well, wait a second. There's not much here with these apps. I want to be you. I want to be the beneficiaries of these. So they've all launched these service aggregators. None of them have got off the ground. I'm not too scared of them. But I'm just telling you that that's how they've assessed the landscape, very similar to what I'm describing. So, truth number 3 is all of us here, you have the right to win. We have the data. We need to capture the data, apply AI to that data, refine and repeat. That's what we need to do. Like, this is not some mystical thing that is accessible only to, like, the select few, like other tech revolutions have been. This is something for $20 a month you have access to. So, where are we in this technology, and how do technologies emerge? So, this is kind of a fun thing for me to talk about because I've lived through now this is my second one of these. But so there's 3 parts of a tech kind of revolution for a new technology. The first is magic. It's like, "What the hell was that? Oh my god, how does that work? That's incredible." Like, it's the coolest thing you've ever seen. You can't even believe it works. Second is, it gets overhyped. Everyone's just like, "AI." It's ridiculous, and everything gets funded. You walk down, Silicon Valley with a PowerPoint presentation, and you get funded. Um and if you can fog a mirror and have a PowerPoint, you're getting funded at Silicon Valley. And then and it will end terribly. Like, you know this. We already know this. But in the long run, it's underhyped. Like, in the long run, it's gonna be more massive than we've ever seen. So here's a couple examples of this arc. So you take the car, the automobile. So you imagine it's like 1902 and you have never seen you've been your whole life you've seen horse-drawn carriages, and then one day you see a carriage going without a horse. You're just like, "Holy shit, what's happening?" You just be like, "That what is that?" Like, it would just be like, "What even just happened? How does that even work?" And so then it gets overhyped, right? There's thousands and thousands of automobile companies. Anything with the word motor in it gets funded. Companies are going public. It's an absolute shit show. All these companies go out of business, thousands of companies. Long run, it's underhyped. It is underhyped. We're still driving cars today. This is Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. On the left is 1902, where every single vehicle there is a horse-drawn carriage, and only 11 years later, in 1913, every vehicle's a car. So it was underhyped in the long term. So it goes through this kind of like arc of like everyone goes crazy, then it kind of dies down, but in the long run, it's actually bigger than anyone thinks. Internet was the same way. So I remember this one a lot of us lived through, right? So I remember the first time I'm an analyst at Morgan Stanley, and we used to like work on models, and we'd put it on like a disk. You put your disk in, you'd put your model on there, and then we'd FedEx it to someone, whatever. And then one day, this IT director's like, "Hey, watch this." And it's like, I'm gonna use CompuServe, whatever the hell that is. And then we sent a model over a phone line. Like, we had to dial up, and plugged our computer into a phone line, and the model got sent to LA. And I was like, "What the hell just happened?" It was amazing. Like, and when the internet first come out, it feels like magic. And then, of course, it goes crazy. You got pets.com and Webvan and everything with the internet. I lived during this. My business school classmates would walk down the street. Everything got funded. It didn't matter. And then, there's a crash. It was a mess. And long run, it was less, it was underhyped. It was underhyped. I mean, turn your Wi-Fi off for a week. Try that. I bet you haven't done that in the last, 25 years. So, I mean, so long run, it's underhyped. So the same is true for AI. First time you probably put something in ChatGPT, you were like, "Holy shit, how did it know this? How did it do that?" It was amazing. And then, of course, now we're in this bubble. It's ridiculous. There's, hundreds and thousands of companies getting funded. It's gonna be a disaster, and long run, it's underhyped. So the point of this is that you've gotta kinda persist through this period. You have to look at the long run, and you have to realize that this interim period now is clunky, right? You're trying stuff. It's not is it it's kinda working. You can kinda see it, but it's not really working, and it's not is it even really better than what you have now? And so imagine, that was true in the internet, right? Is it really that much better for me to buy shampoo online when I got the dial up and I gotta pay shipping and, like, no, it's probably not in the short term. So we're in this kinda clunky period right now. So I wanna share this analogy. This is my kind of best analogy I can come to all of us in AI compared to what Walmart was facing in the internet in 1995. So 1995 I picked because that's when I think Netscape went public right around then, 95, 96. So the internet's huge. It's kind of like people understand what's going to happen, but they don't really understand it. It's kind of like where we are now. Like, people get AI sort of, it's kind of working in places, but so you're Walmart in 1995. And Walmart's like, "Hey, Walmart in 95 was the company, right? This was the third largest company in the world, largest company in the world by revenue. One out of every $6 that was spent in the US in retail was spent at Walmart. That's how dominant Walmart was at that time. So, Walmart's, the internet, I'm not really sure. We don't really know what to think about this. Hey, so we'll keep an eye on it. We'll sort of see. The technology doesn't seem like it's really that good right now. It's dial up after all. No one's really selling much online. Yeah, that's growing fast, but the total revenues online are like that's kind of like a bad hour for us at Walmart. You know, customers. This was a rule everyone knew. Customers will never spend more than $100 online. That was just like a law that everyone in that time knew. And now we'll wait till the tech matures. Our CTO will build a website. This is kind of Walmart's like, yeah, we're on it. Not really. Um, so Walmart's bread and butter market is not really shopping online. That was one of the executives. Another one said, online business continues to be a small part of Walmart's overall income. We don't expect it to have a material impact on the business. That was another one of their prescient quotes from 2000. Uh, and they were right in the short term. They were right about that. So Amazon comes along. Amazon had all the same problems Walmart had. Like they had the same thing, right? They're doing dial up. People would abandon shopping carts. Shipping sucked. It was like more expensive than the product a lot of times. So you could give it away for free, but then you lost money, or you could put it on there and then no one would buy. And it was like it just was clunky, right? Returns didn't really work. Sometimes your tech would just go down in the middle of an order. You weren't sure if you ordered it or not. Credit card fraud all over the place. Amazon had all the same stuff. It wasn't like they were playing a different game. They're playing the exact same game. They probably had more of it than Walmart. So Amazon and Walmart took two very different approaches um, to those clunky periods, right? They're both experiencing the same thing. They just had two very different decisions, and they both, I'm going to argue, they both made an optimal decision. Okay, Amazon's decision to stay with it, Walmart's to ignore it, were both optimal decisions. They just had different time frames. Walmart made an optimal decision for this quarter. Is this the best? What am I going to do right now this quarter? Am I going to spend money and time on this? No, it's gonna be capex or whatever. It's not going to help me this quarter. Amazon made an optimal decision for 10, 15, 20 years from now. So they both made optimal decisions. And not surprisingly, this is the path of the market caps of the companies. They actually passed in 2015, which is incredible because Walmart was started in the 50s. And Amazon now has 4, soon to be 5x the market cap of Walmart. And Walmart should have won, right? Walmart is the incumbent. They have shipping, they have merchandising, they have deals with China, they have the SKUs, they have the distribution center, they have the transportation. Like they had every right to win this game. They could have thumped Amazon. If only we here in this room had been the CEO of Walmart in 1995. Look what we could have done. We could have just demolished everybody. So, yeah, Walmart's, oh, yeah, we fell behind. We've been playing catch up, and we're doing a number of things to accelerate that process. That's the understatement of the year. So they both made intelligent decisions. They just had different time frames. So the four truths of AI, I'll just go through them one more time. Large enough data sets plus processing power will look like human intelligence. By the way, I just want to park on this for 1 second. There's all this you go look up AI on YouTube. You know what comes up? It's like, oh, we got this panel on like, is AI going to be self-aware and have a conscious? That is not what's happening. AI is taking data sets times processing power. There's no consciousness in the, in the technology. That's fun to like see movies about and stuff, but that's not what we're worried about. We're worried about just like how what we're worried about is someone else using AI versus us, not AI taking over the world on its own. Um, it is fun to talk about though. But number two, processing power will continue to increase exponentially. As I said, there will be the increase in 5 years will be 4 times the increase lifetime to date. Staggering to even imagine what's possible. When that thing was beating Gary Kasparov 30 years ago, you have the right to win. So capture the data. It's your data. You have the use case. You apply AI, refine, repeat. We're going to actually work on that this afternoon. And you'll win by planting the oak trees now. You need to experiment, invest, and most importantly, persist. Stay with it. Yes, these things maybe don't work right now, but they will, and you'll be the one who will be benefiting if you're the one who's working on them. You've all seen this quote before, but it's one of my favorite. The best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So that's what we're going to do for the next 2 days is plant some oak trees. Going back to the quotes from Walmart, these are quotes from us related to AI. We tried it, it didn't work. We have some people using ChatGPT in our company. We're a services business. There's not that many implementation opportunities. You will be surprised. We're waiting for the tech to mature, and our CTO is working on something with AI. Uh, it looks very familiar, right? Um, so this is not the winning formula, as we learned from Walmart in 1995. This is the short-term formula. This is the formula for optimizing this quarter. This is not the formula for being the best in the world. The formula for being the best in the world is to look out and see where the puck's going and be on your way to the puck before it gets there. And doing so means you're gonna have to prioritize things today that aren't gonna make you money in this quarter necessarily, but they're gonna set you up to win this game in the long term as though you were the CEO of Walmart in 1995. So the good news is you're Walmart. You're the big incumbent. You're the one with the resources. You have a capital partner that is supportive of you spending money on this. So the good news is you're Walmart. The better news is it's early. It's 1995 right now in AI. How are you going to prioritize AI? Thanks. Thank you.